Hope you all can see my screen now. Fine. So today we are going to cover Unit 9 and Unit 10 and the figure of speech and Unit 11 Rise of the Novel. Okay, a bit part of it. Uh, let's start by John Dryden biography. Okay. After John Donne and John Milton, he was a prominent poet. He was a very famous poet. See, I told you about John Milton and John Donne. John Donne was a person who studied from Cambridge, okay, and John Milton was a Puritan. He wrote that last poem which we covered, Paradise Lost, and he lost his eyes while writing that. Okay, and then comes John Dryden. We are going to discuss about him today. So he was a prominent poet. After William Shakespeare and Ben Jonson, he was a famous dramatist. Okay, there is a huge difference between author, uh, dramatist, and the poets. Okay, poets are the people who write poems. Dramatists are the people who write drama, or authors are the people who write novel or short stories. Okay, his famous heroic drama, The Conquest of Granada, in the 17th century. So John Dryden's famous heroic drama was this, which was written in 17th century. Remember that. And his tragic comedy. Tragic comedy means a mixture of tragedy and comedy is called tragic comedy. That means in that specific text, you will find out tragedy as well as comedy. Okay. Okay, fine. His famous tragic comedy is Marriage a la Mode. This was a name of his tragic comedy. Then comes famous tragedy of John Dryden, All for Love. That means everything is fair in love. Then comes paraphrase. Paraphrase meaning to express something again using different words. That means just now I expressed the all for love, all for love. This was a here one second. All for Love, famous tragedy written by John Dryden, and I used another word of that. What I said just now, that everything is fair in love and war. So paraphrase is just like same. It means to express something again by using different words so that it is easier to understand. So uh, I am even reading English, I am even explaining English, but I am using different words so that you all will understand what I am saying. He published his first important poem in heroic stanza, uh, the 1659, Elegy on Cromwell's death. This was the title of that poem. Then in 1660, sorry, Dryden celebrated the restoration of the monarchy and the return of Charles II. Last time I discussed with you that there was a period called interim. Interim. In that period, there was no monarchy. Parliament was ruling that period, and after that again, when Parliament did not able to rule properly because Oliver Cromwell died. Okay. Uh, After that, his son tried to rule the Parliament, but he couldn't. So England people called Charles II again on the throne, and he told the people of England told them to restore the monarchy again. So this in 1660, Dryden was a person who was with monarchy. He was not with parliament. So he celebrated the restoration of the monarchy and the return of Charles II. Let's read a bit about him. Okay, come to page number 117 of your textbook. John Dryden was the son of Erasmus Dryden. Okay, his father name is Erasmus Dryden and Mary Pickering. Mother's name is Mary Pickering. Born in a Puritan family in 1631. John Dryden was religious and had as much faith in the Lord as he did in his pen. Okay, so he treated Lord and pen equally. He belongs to the Church of England all his life till his conversion to Catholicism due to the change of the throne. So before that he was Puritan, Then he became Catholicism. Then he converted himself to Catholicism because of the throne. John Dryden was the greatest and most represented Englishman of letters of the last quarter of the 17th century. So he was, at that time, he was a very famous person whose words are miraculous for the people of England that time, and who can inspire people in 17th century. By the age of 18, he had already published some of his verses. So when he was 18, before 18, he used to write something, but by the age of 18, his verses are getting published. From the death of Milton in 1674 to his own in 1700, no other writer could compare with him in versatility and power. So here they are saying that John Milton and John Dryden, they both were the prominent, the most famous writer of that period, and no one was there to compare with them. His literary work considered of tragedy, comedy, heroic play, opera. Opera is a kind of small drama setup, okay? Poetry and a satire. His first important literary effort, heroic stanza, as I discussed just now, to the memory of Cromwell. Okay, he wrote a heroic stanza to the memory of Cromwell, Oliver Cromwell, who died, was published in 1659. This was followed by verses on the return of Charles I or Charles II. To add to his small income, he turned to the stage. So he wants to earn more, so he started doing acting. And after two successful attempts, produced his first play. And finally, he was able to write his uh, first play, the Wild Gallant. His first play was The Wild Gallant in 1663. The same year, he produced The Rival Ladies. Rival Ladies, okay, that means in 1663 he wrote two plays, The Wild Gallant and The Rival Ladies. Then in 1663 again, Dryden married Lady Elizabeth, Sir Robert Hobart's sister, The Indian Queen, 1664, written in collaboration with Sir Robert Hobart. His wife's brother was quite a success. The Indian Emperor followed in 1665. During the plague, Dryden lived with his father-in-law in Wiltshire, where he wrote his essay of dramatic poesy. The spelling here written is wrong. That is dramatic, not K is there. Dramatic poesy. The essay was a response to Hobart's preface to his four new plays in 1665. All for Love, the poet's greatest play, as I told you, that was a famous tragedy. Okay, was performed in 1678. He continued to produce plays till the end of his career. Due to his Catholic leanings, he lost the poet laureateship, the national poet of the country. During the last 10 years of his life, he translated many Latin classics, Virgil, Ovid, Laertius, Horace, Horace, and modernized Chaucer. Dryden died in 1700 and was buried in Westminster Abbey. Okay, I hope you understand a bit about John Dryden till now. He got married to Lady Elizabeth. He started writing that dramas. His first famous drama was The White Gallant, and the second one is on the same year he published The Rival Ladies. Also, if you can remember all this, that is very good. If not, then keep reading. You will one day you will able to remember all this stuff. So here, what we are going to discuss in this specific text is Absalom and Aristotle. Okay, Achitophel, sorry. What this is all about. I will tell you that in a very brief summary. I'm just finding where it begins. It's a very long poem. Come to page number 146. Okay. Uh, Absalom and Achitophel. It was written in 1681. It is his famous poetic political satire. So it is based on politics. It is written during the heroic couplet form. It is written using the heroic couplet form and is considered one of the finest English political satire of all the time. It is credited with being the first written satire in the English language and tells the biblical story of Absalom who rebels against King David. So it was related to biblical story of Absalom. The elegy begins by representing England as the biblical land of Israel and the Englishman as the Jews. The group of antagonists in the poems are working. Still, I am not audible. From my side, the volume is full. Look.
Yes, ma'am.
The group of antagonists in the poem are working against King David, whose modern representation is Charles II. The first Earl of Shaftesbury takes on the role of Achitophel, the leader of this group. I don't know what is happening. Well, I'll tell you the story. Let it be. Just don't focus on any other thing. Come to page number 146. I'll read the story and I'll explain. In Absalom and Achitophel, Dryden carefully promoted political reform. So he wants to change the politics because why he wrote about political satire at that time only. As I told you, the politics are changing that time. Okay, monarchy was restoring. Before that, parliament was ruling. So that's why he wrote this political satire. If you take any poet of any century, any specific century, you will find out that why they wrote what was going on in that century. So from John Dryden's this Absalom and Achitophel's poem, you will find out that it was this promoted political reform. Okay, give me a minute. I need to drink a glass of water. Yeah, come back. So let's read. In Absalom and Achitophel, Dryden carefully promoted political reform. He wants to write something on politics because that time politics was changing. Even political government was changing. He used a satire because no one can write directly a good thing or bad thing on politics. So that's why he used satire. The true aim of which he says was the amendment of vices by correction. He wanted to correct the vices of the Whigs of his day, who sought the succession of the Duke of Monmouth, illegitimate son of Charles II, to his father throne. So, what was the situation going on? Situation going on was there when Charles sons doesn't Charles II doesn't have his own heir. That means he doesn't have his own son. So his niece, illegitimate son, Charles II has so many illegitimate sons, but he doesn't have his real son. He was in affair with so many women at that time, but all those women were not legitimate, or they are not the wife of Charles II. And Charles II's son, illegitimate son, I don't remember his name. I get to know this while reading this. Okay, he was very much a king kind of person. I mean, after Charles II, he was a person who is capable of taking care of the throne. But as he was not legitimate one, he thought that he doesn't want in inside he never wanted to be the ruler of the England. He was very happy he being illegitimate, but the crowd, what should I say, the public of the public of England, who were against Charles II and who were against yeah, monarchy. They were like pushing Charles II's son, illegitimate son, to go rebel his father against, to go and fight with his father and take the throne. So when the people, even there were people from that parliament who were like working under Charles II. The people of that specific parliament, one person, he was like secretary or something of that parliament. He on the one side he was showing to Charles II that he is on his side, but on the second side he is going to the England, he's going to the public of England, and he's provoking his illegitimate son to go and rebel against his father, to go and fight with your father and take the throne. Okay, illegitimate son doesn't want to do that, but the people of England pushed him. At last, what happened? I'll tell you. At last, Charles II, even after so many politics happened inside, Charles II was the king. Obviously, he was the king, and he came up with his sword, and he was like, the this poem ends with like, king is always a king, and he's the protector of the. At last, what they said is like, king is, I mean, becoming a king is all God's desire. So not everyone can become a king. So that's how this Abs- Absalom and Achitophel story will end. I will explain you, don't worry. Again, this was a gist of that. The first of these, okay, where were they? Okay, Charles II was a Duke of Monmouth. Okay, remember, Duke of Monmouth, to his father. Okay, Duke of Monmouth. Yeah, sorry. Duke of Monmouth was his illegitimate son. Charles II illegitimate son's name is Duke of Monmouth. He wants to, he doesn't want a throne exactly because he respects his father a lot. But after getting manipulated by the public of England, few people of England especially, uh, he 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 went and fight with his father. Okay, aware that direct satire might defeat its purpose and it might attract resentment, he chose to attack the wits of portraying them as biblical characters. So here, what first paragraph is saying, John Dryden cannot write this political satire directly, so that's why he used biblical character stories. Okay, and the characters name of that biblical. Several main divisions can be noted in the poem. The first of these, an account of political situation in Israel. Okay, in the biblical poem, it is Israel, but in reality, it is England. Remember that. Here, they are comparing reality to the biblical story. Okay, opens with a reference to David. David was a biblical character in the biblical in the Bible. It was a character named David on whom the story is based, but in reality, it is based on Charles II. Okay, virility in lighter vein wasted on a barren queen. However, it produced many illegitimate children. As I told, Charles II doesn't have a legitimate son, but he has so many illegitimate sons because he has so many affairs with so many beautiful women at that time. Okay, of whom the noblest and the most handsome was Absalom, Duke of Monmouth. So yeah, Absalom was the Duke of Monmouth. He got the title of Duke of Monmouth, and his name was Absalom. Absalom, Charles II's illegitimate son name. Okay, although, oh, sorry, David's kingly virtue were equally strong, but the Jews seldom appreciated them. So that time Charles II was also Jews, but he converted to Catholic. Okay, so he was even. What was the reason behind that? The reason behind it, Jewish people, in England, the people who were Jews were not satisfied with Charles II because he converted from Jews religion to the Catholicism. But it's not like that Charles II was not giving them attention or not paying anything. He was giving proper attention to Jewish people or the England people. He was not partialating. He was not doing anything bad. He was doing all his stuff as a king should do. But the people of England was not happy. Some Jewish people were not happy because he converted. Okay, so that's why they started this internal conflict, internal fight. So what happened? David's kingly virtues were equally strong, but the Jews seldom appreciated them. Although David gave no cause for rebellion. See, as I told you, King David doesn't have anything against the Jewish people. He doesn't have any cause for rebellion, any cause for fight. Rebellion means fight. As the wiser Jews, Taurus pointed out, a cause was found in the alleged Jebusite Catholic plot to convert the nation of the Egyptian French religion. So here, what one person, one wiser Jews named Taurus, he pointed out that he was like, if we not stop, if we will not kill Charles II, then he will convert whole nation to Catholicism. Okay, it will convert into French language. Catholic, it will become Catholic. The plot failed but led to factions whose leaders were jealous of David and opposed his treason. At last, what happened, as I told you, even after Absalom fight with his father, he lost in that fight, and Charles II was won. Okay, the second section of the poem portrays Achitophel. Achitophel, yeah, the person who is against Charles II was Achitophel, the chief of all these leaders, the Earl of Shaftesbury, leader of Whigs. As I told you, there was a person from the parliament. The person name is Achitophel, and he is carrying the Earl of Shaftesbury, leader of Whigs title. Okay, and an account of his efforts to persuade Absalom to seize the throne. So he was keep on going and provoking Absalom. Go and fight with your father. Go and take the throne. You are the person. You are the person who can take the throne. You are the legitimate one. One second. Sorry for the student. Yeah, where were we? Okay, yeah. So he was keep on persuading Absalom to seize the throne, to go and take the throne. Dryden characteristics Achitophel as a brilliant wit but highly ambitious, unwilling to be remembered only for his distinguished career as a judge, he resolved to ruin or to rule the state. So here he was either he want to ruin the kingdom or he want to rule the kingdom. That was a motive with Achitophel came and was persuading Absalom. Okay, Achitophel used the flattery to win Absalom. He was like using flattery words. When we need someone's help, not every person, but when we need someone help, which whom we doesn't like, so we used to go and flatter that person by saying good about that person, even when we don't even mean it. Okay. In the same way, Achitophel did flatters Absalom, proclaiming that the nation was clamoring for him, that nation wants him, and Charles II was not a good leader. He is likened to a second Moses initially. Absalom resisted. As I told you, Absalom doesn't want to go against his father. Okay. Initially, he resisted, declaring that David was a wise and just king and that David's brother, the Duke of York, should be the legal heir. So, what happened, as I told you, see, king's son can only be the legal heir to take the throne. When king doesn't have his own son, then his brother will take the throne. So in the same manner, David's brother, Duke of York, was a legal heir. Here, Achitophel doesn't like personally doesn't like this person, the Duke of York. So he was pushing Absalom to go and take the throne and fight for the throne. These half-hearted objections of Achitophel met with restraint. David's mildness, he felt, had now become a weakness. The public demanded Absalom's strength, and the rightful heir was planning to murder Absalom. So here, how he provoked Absalom by saying that if you will not go and fight with your father, what will happen? Your father's son, that means the youth of yours, will definitely going to kill you because you are the person who has strength to rule this kingdom. Okay, and if you will die, this nation is getting will get ruined. Okay, the public demand Absalom's strength, and the rightful heir was planning to murder Absalom. David himself secretly wanted Absalom to be the king. Inside somewhere, David because no matter it was illegitimate or son, that was David's son, Charles' second son. So he wants his child to rule the kingdom. But as per the rules of monarchy, he can't. Okay. David himself secretly wanted Absalom to be the king and would come whereupon Achitophel proceeded to organize a single party. So what happened? Achitophel planned for a party. Now what happened? I'll tell you. I'll read and explain you. Then you will understand me. The third section of the poem lists the motives of the misguided patriots, republicans, and the religious fanatics in the character of Jimbery, which Dryden considered worth the whole poem. He mocked the fickleness and the extremity of Buckingham, Shaftesbury lieutenant in the Whig party. So these were the people of the parliament. So you don't need to remember all this. Okay. Shimi present the Sheriff of London, who had betrayed the king's interest, and Koha, the notorious Titus Gates, who fabricated many of the details of the Catholic plot. Next follows Absalom nation's wide tour. Achitophel plans to see the extent of the people's support to exclude the legal heir from the throne and establish Absalom's right to the succession by law. So here they are saying the same thing that they doesn't want Duke of York to come and rule the kingdom. They want Absalom to come and rule the kingdom. Okay. Absalom cleverly portrayed himself as a people's friend, opposed to Egyptian domination, the Jebusite plot, and the senile king, but unable to act. The Jews, always easy to fool, consider Absalom as Messiah. In the next section, Dryden attacks the Jews' native support of naive support of Absalom and their willingness to overthrow legally instituted authority. Dryden was a conservative who upheld the supremacy of established law over people voices. He feared that the government would quickly deteriorate into anarchy if they were allowed to change the order of the succession. Dryden feared that the people's judgment and saw any movement towards democracy. Now follow details of David's supporters. The Tory leader when yeah so as I told you, like the people, like the half Jewish people were supporting Absalom because they want a Jewish king to rule the England. Here, the Catholic people of England were supporting King Charles II because he was the amazing king. He was taking care of everything. No one has any that what should be so. No one has any problem and complaint to the Charles II. So so internally, Charles II got to know that his own illegitimate son Absalom is planning some plot against him. So here, see, in this, nothing happened. In the poem, you will not fight any fight. You will not find any fight. But what at last what happened? In the poem, the king Charles will come with his sword, and he will say. At last, he will say some lines like kings are the people who are um, kings are the people who were chosen by God, and no one can defeat them. And in that way, the poem will end. There is no fight happen in the poem. Okay, according to the poem, let's read it. Now follow details of David supporters. The Tory leader here, of course, there were no satirist intent. Brazili, the Duke of Ormond, and the novelist Adrian. You don't have to remember all this. Okay, just remember the story. That's okay for you. Two members of the clergy, namely Jordic. Okay, let it be. I don't want to waste my time on reading all this stuff. So hope you understand the poem. In the last line of the poem, heaven claps its thunder in approval of David's word and new era is heralded. So when King Charles came with his sword and he was declaring himself chosen by the god, the thunder was happening there at that time, which one second. So that was the story of Absalom and Achitophel. That's how it's end. At last, what happened when King Charles II was declaring those lines that king was chosen from the heaven itself, and the thunder was happening, and that's how the story ends. There was no fight. I mean, in reality, in the story of biblical, according to biblical story of David, a fight happened. Okay, at last David won. Let me see the chant. Now come to what should we read. Let's discuss the question answer of this. You all will read. Let me. Okay. Now come to unit second. Okay, figure of speech used in this specific. What is happening? I hope you all can see my screen. Okay, figure of speech you will find in the poem Absalom and Achitophel. It's like allegory. Allegory, a short poem or picture that can be interrupted to reveal a hidden meaning, typically a moral or political one. Okay, allegory is a kind of story poem. Inside it has a hidden meaning, and typically that is based on typically that is based on morality and the political satire. Okay, elogi, a speech or piece of writing that praises someone or something highly, especially a tribute to someone who had just died. Okay. Then a satire. Satire is the use of humor, irony, sarcasm, or ridicule to criticize something or someone. And even also use heroic couplet, a pair of rhyming iambic pentameter, much used by Chaucer and the poet. I don't know why this is happening. Okay. A pair of rhyming iambic pentameter, much used by Chaucer and the poet of 17th and 18th century, such as Alexander Pope. So these were from basically heroic couplet was used by 17th and 18th century poets. Then come tropology, a figurative interpretation of the scriptures as a source of moral guidance. So we are portraying something from what holy books or holy textbook to give moral guidance to the public. Okay, that's how this unit ends. Okay, now discuss. Now we are going to discuss unit 10, the way of the world. If anyone has any questions, then let me know. Ask me. Okay, fine. That means you don't have any questions for me. Okay, The Way of the World by William Congreve. Let's read about him. But before that, let me how to. Okay, William Congreve was born in 1670, died in 1729, studied at the Trinity College in Dublin, where he was one of the Jonathan Swift students. Jonathan Swift was also another poet. He gave up a career in the law to concentrate on literature and drama. So he was doing law, but because he was very passionate towards literature and drama, he just gave up. He wrote four comedies. The Old Bachelor that gave him instant fame. So he became famous because of this specific poetry called The Old Bachelor. Then he wrote The Double Dealer. After that, he wrote Love for Love. Then, what which we are going to discuss here is The Way of the World, his masterpiece. Why as Hasina raised her hand is, do you have any question as Hasina? Ask me. If not, then let me finish. Because the your I need now, excluding today's class, I have only four classes left and I need to finish all this. And with that, I need to at least tell you the gist of the story so that when you will be read, you will understand something. He wrote four comedies: The Bachelor, The Old Bachelor, The Double Dealer, Love for Love, The Way of the World. 1700, his masterpiece. Okay. The play, however, was not well received at the time and was criticized for being overcomplicated. So when that play published, that means which play? The Way of the World published at the time of William Congreve, it was criticized badly. See, people are famous not because people are not famous because of the fame. Fame can be negative or the positive one. So this play received very this play received okay, this play received criticism, that means negative comments, and that's how it became famous. He died in London and was buried in Westminster Abbey. The Way of the World plot is quite complex, so you have to listen to me carefully. The young libertine Mirabelle is in love with the beautiful and witty, amusing Millamant. So remember the name. This is like so confusing. Mirabelle is a woman name, and Millamant is a men's. Okay. Mirabelle is in love with beautiful and witty, amusing Millamant. Millamant is the name of a guy whose aunt means Mirabelle's aunt, Lady Wishford, will not consent to their marriage. So here Mirabelle wants to marry Millamant, but Lady Wishford is not going to agree. And at last they got married. So I'll tell you the story. Don't worry, I'll tell you the story. Let's come to your textbook itself. A quite complex story. There is not a textual explanation. Come to page number 156 of your textbook. Okay. So The way of the world is based on these character list, story of these character list. Let's read. First, read the structure of the play. Okay, the play is divided into 5 acts. The play begins with a prologue. Prologue is a kind of a page, let's say, starting page of any novel or textbook is called prologue. Okay, which is a satiristic introduction to the thematic context. So it was that prologue is based on satiristic introduction. Okay, the prologue is spoken by Mr. Betterton, one of the leading actors of Congreve's time. The humor and satire that is so characteristic of the play is evident here. He says, some plot we think he has and some new thought. Some humor too, no phrase, but that's a fault. Satire he thinks you ought not to expect, for so reformed a town who dares correct. The play centered around the amorous intrigues of the principal characters. I will explain, don't worry. List of the characters. So here we will find Fennel, Mirabelle. Fennel loves Mrs. Marwood. Mirabelle loves Mrs. Millamant. Okay, Widbound, Sir Wilful's Widbound's half brother, follower of Mrs. Millamant. Petulant, followers of Mrs. Millamant. Sir Wilful. So, okay, we don't need to remember all this. We just need to remember panel, okay, Mirabelle, panel, Mirabelle, Widwood, Sir Wilful Widwood, okay, and Lady Wishford, Millamant, Mrs. Marwood, Mrs. Painwell. When she got married, then it became Mrs. Painel, and Foyvel and Mincy. Okay, let's read. So, Act 1. The scene is set in a chocolate house, one of the fashionable places to meet during 18th century. So, a chocolate house was a very fashionable place at the 18th century. Mirabelle and her friend, his friend Fennel, are playing cards. Mirabelle and his friend Fennel is a male, his friend. Mirabelle and his friend, so confusing, are playing card, let it be. Another fashionable pastime for the idle rich. That time, playing card is something richy stuff. Just now, using phone every time. Whole day is like a richy stuff. It's like everyone's stuff. Okay. At that time, playing cards is a richy stuff. Idle rich stuff. Mirabelle, the hero of the play. Okay. Mirabelle is a guy. Mirabelle, the hero of the play, appears preoccupied. Fennel is concerned at his indifference. The truth is that Mirabelle and Millamant are in love. Mirabelle is a guy, Millamant is a woman, and they both are in love. To hide his love for Millamant, Mirabelle deceives Lady Wishford. So what happened? I'll tell you the story. Okay, Lady Wishford is a very rich woman. Okay, after her death, the whole property or the whole will is going to transfer to Mirabelle. But Lady Wishford put a condition. She was like, if you will get married according to my choice, then only this my property will transfer on your name. Otherwise, no. Okay. That's why Mirabelle deceives Lady Wishford. Mirabelle deceives Lady Wishford, Milamant's aunt. Lady Wishford is a Milamant's aunt. Okay, into believing that her, he loves her. Mrs. Marwood, who is secretly in love with Mirabelle, exposes Mirabelle's strength. Okay, uh, here, see, there was a Mrs. Okay, fine. Lady Wishford's best friend is Mrs. Marwood. Okay, so whatever the story Lady Wishford got to know about the town, it's from her best friend Mrs. Marwood. So here, Mrs. Marwood is having a internal kind of crush towards Mirabelle. Okay, so when Mrs. Marwood got to know about the affair of the Mirabelle and the Millamant, she went to Lady Wishford and exposed them. Okay, Lady Wishford, who is an old lady, is furious and became his enemy. This is unfortunate because Millamant would get half her fortune only if she married with her aunt's consent. Okay, okay, fine. There was another stuff. If Milament will marry according to Lady Wishfort's wish, I mean wish, then she will get half, not full, half of her fortune, half of her property. Otherwise, she will not get any property. So, Mirabel now conceives another ingenious plan to trick Lady Wishfort into giving her consent to his marriage with Millamant. He arranges a marriage between his servant Waiteville and Lady Wishfort's maid Foible and keeps their marriage certificate with him. Sir Wilful Whitford, Squire Whitford, half brother and Lady Wishfort's nephew, is due to visit her while on his way to Continental Toll. Another complication sets in. Sir Roland, an unmarried uncle of Mirabel, uh, is in town. I'll tell you the story. Yeah, this is so boring of explain. See, the story is about Mirabel and Milamet are sharing a love affair with each other. Okay, here on the other side, Finn and Arabelle are in relationship, but and Mirabel and Fennel are cousins, each cousin. So Lady Wishfort has to divide her property on two parts. That is one for Mirabel and one for Fennel. And she put condition for both the ladies that if you will marry according to my wish, then my property will be given to you. Okay. What happened is Mirabel met Milamet is already in love with Mirabel, so she doesn't want to get married according to she doesn't want to get married according to Lady Wishfort, but still Lady Wishfort find a guy, a very old man, a proposal, and his name is Sir Rowland, uh, to get married to Mirabel. What happened, sir? Rowland was a very good person. At last, when he got to know about Mirabel's and Milament's affair, he agreed Mirabel to go and get married to Milament, and Fenel also at last to get married to Arabelle. Fenel was jealous of Mirabel because Fenel was already in love with Arabella, but Arabella does not take care of Fenel as Milament. Okay, Arabella does not take care of Fennel as Mirabel take care of Milament. I don't know whether you're getting it or not. It's a very complex name of these characters. Okay, in this act, we are introduced to the principal character in the play. Come to page number 157, third paragraph. In this act, we are introduced to the principal characters in the play. The basic theme is that of love. So this this is based on love. Okay, and the different attitudes to love. Lady Wishfort anticipated towards a match between Mirabel and Milament lead to intricate complications as Milament's fortune would come to her only if she married to her aunt's consent. As I told you, she has to marry according to her aunt's consent. The plot is concerned with Mirabel's plan to outfit Lady Wishfort into agreeing to his marriage with Milament and her own accord. So here the planning was going on that they will anyhow they will push Lady Wishfort to get to push her to get married to Mirabel. Okay. So Mirabel, with his rational outlook, money is as important as love. Money is as important as love. Okay, and he is determined to marry Milament with, but not without her fortune. So here, Mirabel wants to marry Milament only with the money. If Milament does not take her fortune or her money with herself, then Mirabel is not agreed to marry Milament. So Mirabel's love for Milament is also revealed in this act. There is no sentimentality involved. He loves her in spite of her faults. He says her follies are so natural and so artful that they become her, and the affectations with which in other women would be odious, serve but to make her more agreeable. We are also introduced to the cable nights where women come together to sit upon and murder reputations of the weak. The men have their coffee houses, and women their cable nights to entertain the gossip. Okay, let it be. Leave that second paragraph, last paragraph of first act. Now, act second. The scene is set in St. James Park. Mrs. Fennell and Mrs. Marwood are deep in conversation. Their opinion about men indicate that though they profess to hate them, they cannot live without them. Okay. Fennell and Mrs. Artwood. Uh, they were trying to they were used to say that they don't like men, but when they were having the conversation, it reflects that they cannot live without a man. Okay. Mrs. Fainwell's statesmen are ever in extremes, either doting or adverse. While they are lovers, their jealousies are unstoppable. And when they cease to love, they loathe. They meet us like the ghost of what we were, and as such fly from us. And when they cease to love, they loathe. Okay, there was I. But she stated, I would be better to be left than never to have been loved. She was like, I will be better if I will be getting loved. To pass our youth in dullness, in dull indifference, to refuse the sweet of life because they once must never leave us. It is a preposterous as to which to have she's born old because one day we must be old. Mrs. Okay, fine, you all will read this. I told you the story. Now this is a very complex story based on Mirabel Milamin's affair, and at last they all got married. And in between, a person, Sir Roland, came and he was getting married to Milament, but he allowed Milaman to get married to Mirabel. If you have any question regarding this, then let me know because I cannot explain this. Fine. The theme of the theme of this play is marriage, its reality and appearance. Second, at Congreve's time, arranged marriage was the were rule rather than the exception. Okay, when John Dryden, at the age of John Dryden, it is like compulsory to go for arranged marriage, and they were based mainly on property and inheritance. They were based on at last they were based on dowry rather than mutual affection between the partners. Okay, jealousy, love, and money, and men versus women were the theme of the play. Now we are going to do background to the rise of the novel and to the romantic poetry. Okay, the rise of English novel occurred primarily in the 18th century. This does not mean that there was no form of novel before this time. Rise of novel means from the 18th century, people started reading novels a lot. But that does not say that before 18th century there was no readers or there were not a single people who read novels. Okay, it only means that There were an increased release of novels and the novelists during this period. The 18th century was a period that lasted from 1685 to 1815. The 18th century great novels are semi-anti-romance. Okay, that is based on a bit of romance and bit of something else. But romance was a theme of was a great theme of 18th century novels. Or it was the first time that the novel emerged and distributed widely and largely among its reading public. Moreover, with the increase of literacy, the demand on the reading material increased rapidly among well-to-do women who were novel readers of the time. So that time, people were free. They doesn't have television. They doesn't have anything. Either they used to play with cards, or else they started reading novels. Thus, theater was not such feasible form of entertainment. So theater was boring that time. But novel was due to its large audience and it spread all over the land in country houses. In other words, middle was such an important factor behind the growth of the novel as new form of art. So middle class people were the people who were like pushing, who were not pushing, who were like uh, the majority of the middle class people who were the novel readers. Okay, and the types of novel were picaresque novel, sentimental or epistolary novel, domestic novel, and gothic novel. You will find this in your textbook. Don't worry about it. There is nothing except from your textbook. Unit second, now picaresque novel. This form originated in Spain. The word picaresque came from the Spanish word picaro, which means a rogue or rogue. Cervantes was a Spanish writer who wrote a novel called Don Quixote. Okay, in 1605, and with it began the history of picaresque novel. The Unfortunate Travel is the best example of picaresque novel. Okay, hope you get it. If not, then we can read from a textbook as well. One second. Come to page number 169. Though it is widely believed that the rise of novel as a literary genre began in the 18th century, Chaucer's Troilus and Cresside in 1380 is considered the first novel ever. Okay. Since it has all the features of a novel lengthy conversational passage, a complex plot, a psychological truth, then came Sir Thomas Malory with his another novel Morty the Earth in 1470, a collection of stories about the King Arthur and his round table of knights in which two main themes run parallel. One of the search of Percival and Galahad for the Holy Grail and the other. The unhappy romance of Lancelot and Guinevere which caused the ultimate breakup of the round table. In the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, two different kinds of prose fiction were written. Okay, the first of them was Sir Philip Sidney, Arcadia, was his famous work in 1590, a romance written in a very artificial prose style set against an idyllic pastoral background and filled with heroes and heroines with Greek and Latin names. Their adventures were remote from real life and were written from educated readers who would who would fully appreciate the fantastic language and the allusions to Greek and Latin literature and history. These readers did not seek realism and therefore were very popular with the young. The second stream of popular reading of the time was a kind of stories written in ordinary language of the lay reader. Okay, they're not explaining about the picaresque novel. Okay, come to page now. On the same paragraph, on the same page was the fourth paragraph. The most famous picaresque novel was Cervantes' Don Quixote, a story in which the real Picaro is not a don but his servant Sancho Picaro, Sancho Panza, but the English writers of the picaresque novel too grew to okay. Now we need to read last paragraph also. The unfortunate traveler or the life of Wilson conform to all the conditions of true picaresque novel. What is picaresque novel? Now we'll understand. The word picaresque comes from a Spanish picaro, meaning thief or rogue. That means पिकारेस्क्यू नॉवल बेस्ड ऑन थीफ चोरी चोरी के ऊपर बेस्ड था thief or rogue. A novel was considered picarious if it described a manner of separate event, comic or violent, united by the fact that they all happen to the chief character of the story. So picaresque novel is a kind of novel which has so many events, consists of so many events, and they all are linked with each other, and at last a single character of the story, the chief character of the story, is a theme. Okay, thief. Sorry. Prior to the rise of this genre, the chief character of any story was usually called the hero, but he performed heroic acts. But here, that term cannot be used to describe the chief character of the novel because the chief character was a thief and the rogue. So basically, what we do when we read a normal novel, we used to say that he is a hero or the heroine of the story. But here, as a picaresque novel based on thief and rogue, we cannot call them heroes. Okay, the most famous picaresque novel was Cervantes' Don Quixote, a story in which the real Picaro is not a don, but his servant Sancho Panza. But the English writer of the picaresque novel who grew to immense with Henry Fielding and Tobias Smollett, the central figure in Fielding's Tom Jones and Sommer's Roderick Random as much of picaresque nature as in Nash does. Now they are comparing two, three writers and their work of picaresque novel. Okay, but it wasn't until the 17th century when the Italian novella, what is novella and novel? Okay, novella is shorter than novel. It's not a short story, even shorter than the short story. No, half of the novel is called novella. Okay, if a novel has 300 pages, then take it 150 or 100 pages as a novella. Okay, uh, when the Italian novella emerged on the literary scene, this was a collection of stories written by Boccaccio in his Decameron and other Italian writers of the time. A little later, the novel assumed a more complete and definite form and would easily be defined as fictitious prose narrative of considerable length in which characters and actions representative of real life are portrayed in a plot or more in a plot of more or less complexity. In the 18th century, people began to write and read all kind of novel. In fact, it had become a mania with the upper class who had unlimited amount of empty time longing to be filled. So what better way would there be but to read any number of stories about lovers and their romantic adventures? The heroines of these stories were very like the readers, or at least in the latter's imagination. As I told you, that time there was no television, no cell phone, no electronic device. So that is why people were attracted towards the novel. In it was in 1740 that Samuel Richardson, author of Pamela, Clarissa Howley, and Sir Charles Grandison, and the best known for the father of English novel, showed that all brown dull leather bound books that sat on one's writing desk need not be dull in context. So they showed the 18th century people showed that Not everything that covers in brown stuff is a dull. It is interesting. Before that, they used to consider it as a dull. This is what he set out to prove through his novel, so much so that his genre at its peak was what cinema was to later audience, a window to the world of imagination. So people were like, when they started reading novels, they are finding that novels are the gateway of the knowledge. In such a millennium, the sentimental novel. Now we are talking about another novel. Let's come to here. Sentimental novel. It is called as epistolary novel. Epistolary came from the word epistle, which means letter. This kind of novel is written in form of series of letter. Here, the main character corresponds with others through letters. So here, this is all about letter poem, letter novel. Samuel Richardson, the father of English novel, his famous novel are Camilla or Virtue Rewarded, Clarissa Roberts, and Sir Charles Grandison, as I just read it from this textbook. One striking features of his novels are that all are titled after the name of protagonist. His work are largely the reflection of man himself, and in the spite of their fault, they are of immense importance for the development of novel. I'll read, I'll explain, don't worry. That's not going up. Okay. Through Fielding, page number 171. Though Fielding display a new degree of skill in plot development and narrative structure, Somlet took the novel as genre further with his range of novels which featured structure. Somlet took the novel as genre. Okay, sorry. Uh, I'll explain normally why to read all this. Okay, sentimental novel. I hope you understand. It's a letter novel based on letters itself. Then comes domestic novel. In this type of novel, what happens? The writer deals with the social life of the people and with the daily life of the character. Okay, the beginning is made by Fanny Burney, but the most popular exponent is Jane Austen. So the famous writers of the domestic novels are Fanny Burney, Jane Austen. Frances of Fanny Burney is another important figure in the history of domestic novel. Her novels are written with fine simplicity of style and shows her to possess a considerable narrative faculty and a great gist for life. Her observation of life was keen and close. Her Her observation of life was keen and close, and her description of society are in a delightful satirical vein in many ways, like that of Jane Austen. So these both females were famous for domestic novels. Okay. Then comes Gothic novel, as the name reveals, it's a horror novel based on horrific events. The term Gothic originally refers to Goths, a German tribe, then came to signify Germanic, and then medieval. Towards the end of 18th century grew the novel of terror of or Gothic novel, better known as Gothic romances. The English Romantic movement, which found its supreme expression in poetry, was reflected in a somewhat cruder and more primitive manner in the novel, where it is helped to inaugurate what where it is helped to inaugurate a new literary genre, the thriller. The first terror novel emerged with Horace Walpole, the Castle of Ot- or Otranto. The extraordinary change that emerged in the last quarter of the 18th century is difficult to define. The Romantic movement was essentially complex and changes insensibility had long been in progress. So these were the four novels. First, Picaresque, second, Sentimental, third, Domestic, and fourth is Gothic. Hope you understand. Let's read a bit of background of Romantic Age, page number 172. The word romantic, it's not about romance romantic. It's about a person is having a romance with the nature. That's romantic. Okay. The word romantic first came into use in the 18th century England and originally meant romance-like, or one that resembled the strange and fanciful character of medieval romances. It also extended to exclude the new taste of wild scenery, sublime prospects, and ruins, which were amply reflected in the popular tilt towards the belief in the aesthetic theory of the sublime rather than the beautiful. Edmund Burke, British writer and statesman, once identified beauty with delicacy and harmony, and the sublime with vastness, obscurity, and something that easily inspired terror. It was not the it was not just the emphasis on the aesthetic theory of the sublime that typified the romantic age, but also that feeling was considered more important than reason in literature. And in ethics, an attitude epi- epitomized by the work of the French novelist and philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau. In the 1790s, English and German romantic poetry made their entry, and by the end of the century, this shift away from reason towards feeling and imagination begins the sea. Okay, what was happening this time when novel started is that novel was based on reason, or at least that is based on something. But gradually, with time, reason goes away, and it comes to imaginative kind of novel. Okay. 50 years after the death of Dr. Samuel Johnson in 1784, British literature was its peak in both quality and variety. The classical age, known by its emphasis on order, clarity, and tranquility, gave way to the free, spontaneous, and natural expression of thoughts and feelings in the romantic, popularly known as Romanticism. Historically, it came 43 years after. Okay, basically, remember, background of romantic age means what is romanticism according to romantic age. A author is having an affair with the nature, or he is beautifying, expressing his beauty, his eyes beauty of the nature. Okay, the impact of French Revolution on the romantic poetry. Now we'll read a bit about it. After the French Revolution came the Romantic movement. After French Revolution, Romantic movement emerged. Though the influence of the Romantic movement was very slightly felt in other countries, in England, its influence was deeply felt by certain Victorian writers like Swinburne, though the social and political upheavals in France considerably influenced the shaping and development of the Romantic movement in England. The writers who were keenly inspired by it were Scott, Bryan, and Rose. So these three were the famous people of Romantic movement. Rousseau's influence in terms of sentiment can be seen in the poems of Wordsworth, Coleridge, and Blake, while his thinking influenced the poems of Godwin and Shelley. The influence of this great movement, the French Revolution, appealed differently to each of the Romantic poems. Let us begin with Byron, who was not influenced by the intellectual side of the revolution as with the greatness of Napoleon. Being an egotistical man, Napoleon's personality appealed to Byron and the force of dynamism to Napoleon seized the fourth imagination and can be seen in his poems. This line of thought came up at a very opportune time in England when the public moral was very low. People were disillusioned and the way and the government was run and general political and social fabrics of the society. Therefore, by infusing the Napoleon's personality into his poem, Byron consciously and unconsciously shaped the public thought and moved them away from a feeling of pessimism to one of optimism and positivity. To break the doctrine of French Revolution gave meaning and substance to his own spiritual side. The freedom that people demanded for the revolution gave Blake a sense of joy, a divine rapture. I hope you are getting me. Byron got inspiration from French Revolution and he started writing about Napoleon people, and that made him famous. Okay, now Blake. He also got inspired from French Revolution, and he finds his own spiritual side um, with the help of sense of joy and divine rapture and the freedom of common earthly things that bind us to a daily routine. In this thought, he comes close to Shelley's lyrical poem. In 1789, the second phase of the revolution begins, and from his political event emerged. The poets William Wordsworth, Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and Robert Southey, the passionate for life's spontaneity, for all the things in nature and God given, and the brotherhood of man shaped their poetry. But for all these poets contributed to the age in terms of poetry, the most representative poet of the age will also be Shelley. Fine, you all read it. I don't find it interesting to explain. Read even page number 170 to 4 and 175. You'll find the tomorrow we are going to read unit 12. Okay, not 11. 12, 13, 14 I'm skipping because I don't have, I didn't prepare the PPT of that. I will explain 13 and 14 units in the next Saturday. After 12, I will be going to explain unit 15 to you, to all of you. Okay, tomorrow. Joseph Andrews Henry Fielding. A good story. Let me go back and read the portions. I hope you understood the Renaissance drama, everything. It is a bit of political background of this. See, if you come to page number 122, you will find out that the biblical characters of the poem Absalom and Achitophel. On the left side, there are the biblical characters, David. On the right side, it was a real character, King Charles II. Then Michal, Catherine of Verdzana, Charles' wife, unable to have children. Okay, Charles II's wife's name is Catherine. Remember that. Then comes Absalom, Duke of Monmouth, Charles' oldest son, illegitimate. Then come Achitophel, Earl of Shaftesbury, leader of Whig party. Then comes Shaw, Cromwell, the Jews, the English, Jerusalemites, Londoners, rabbins, clergy, Egypt, France, Jebusite, Roman Catholic. Okay. What what is happening? What kind of behavior is this? If you're not liking the class, just leave it. Page number 121. Let's revise. Absalom and Achitophel, published anonymously in 1681. Absalom and Achitophel is an allegory in which Dryden uses the scriptural story of Absalom's rebellion against David, that means told in Bible, Samuel 2nd, to refer to the contemporary period people involved in the controversy surrounding the succession. It is written in heroic couplet, rhyming, iambic, pentameter, and its major theme is political concentrating on democracy, rebellion, conspiracy, and temptation. These were the theme of Absalom and Achitophel. Okay, it is set in Sion, Jerusalem, which represent London. From you, the setting is London. Absalom represents Duke of Monmouth, the illegitimate son of King Charles, and Lucy Walters, The growth, the grotesque and the first Achitophel stands for Anthony Ashley Cooper, the Earl of the Earl of Shaftesbury. The name of that person is Anthony Ashley Cooper, who attempted to block the succession of the king's Catholic brother James by setting Monmouth on the throne. Among the other persons and parties to whom Dryden refers are Charles II, George Villiers, Duke of Buckingham, the Catholics, Louis XIV of France, Paraho, Parliament. Okay, these were the people. I'm not going to read all of this. He alleges that certain jurists plan to assassinate Charles to place James on the throne. Godfrey is subsequently murdered, and numerous Catholics are tried and executed. Absalom is introduced as the bravest and most beautiful of King David's numerous descendants, while Achitophel attempts to turn anti-Catholic feeling against the king. Achitophel urges Absalom to seize the moment and take power. Absalom struggles with his conflicting feelings, loyalty, and ambition, while Achitophel doubles his efforts by uniting numerous parties. Okay, when Absalom was like in a conflicting state and he doesn't want to fight with his father, what Achitophel did, he doubles his efforts, he doubles his army, and unites so many political people who were against the king. Okay, Absalom leaves the court and addressed the admiring crowd, and popular feeling is tried up against the king. David speaks sternly and receives divine inspiration. God agrees with him and order is restored. And Absalom and Achitophel, Dryden's intention was to instigate public opinion against the Whigs, led by Shaftesbury, who were promoting the Duke of Monmouth, the king's illegitimate son, as King Charles' successor rather than the king's brother. What Dryden suggests is that, here what Dryden wants to say is that history repeats itself, and if we look at the ancient example, we can determine how this will turn out. Maybe we can prevent certain things from happening if we know what specific behavior will lead to. The audience of 1681 would have known immediately to whom the author referred. There was a time when another civil war was imminent. Dryden believes that monarchy was divinely ordained. Restoration history has a biblical analogy for him. But the poem is neither Jewish nor English history, it is a comment on both. Some details are not biblical and are and do not occur in David's time. So the poem is not only based on reality or the biblical story, it is also based on imagination itself. So that's all for today's class. Tomorrow we are going to discuss what I told you. Unit 12, not 13 and 14. 13 and 14 will discuss next Saturday. Unit 12 and Unit 15. Or else if I'll get time, I'll start with background of Victorian age. Have a good day to all of you. That's all for today's class.